Hi friends and welcome back to my channel. So on today's video we are going to be dipping our toe into some true crime. So this is a bit different from what I've done previously on my channel. I usually talk about things like spirituality and self-development, but yeah, we are going to be dipping our toe into some true crime today, and honestly, I am really excited for it. I am fascinated by true crime, and what's even better is I also get to talk about one of my favourite shows, Stranger Things. So this is one for all my Stranger Things fans out there, and if you're also interested in true crime, then it's a win-win for you. It's a good day to be you. Today we're going to be talking about the tragic real story behind Stranger Things Season 4. If you haven't seen Stranger Things Season 4 yet and you want to see it and you don't want anything spoiled, then I would just suggest clicking out this video and going watching it and coming back. Grab yourself a drink, a tea, coffee. I have made myself a gorgeous oat latte. Just before we get into it, I will say I just want to apologise if my voice sounds a little bit scratchy. I was at the Green Day gig last week and my voice has not recovered yet, so we're dealing with it. Anyway, yes, today we are going to be talking about the tragic true story behind one character in particular in Stranger Things Season 4. It's everyone's favourite character. We're going to be talking about Eddie Munson. Now, I'm obsessed with him. I'm officially on Stranger Things TikTok by this point, and I am just seeing constant Eddie Munson edits. So if you're there, please leave me a comment so that I know I'm not alone. But we're going to be talking about who Eddie Munson was loosely based on. And this was confirmed by the Duffer Brothers, so this is a legit fact. Now, when I was watching this season of Stranger Things, I thought it was a really good portrayal of the Satanic Panic that was happening in the 80s in America. And if you're not familiar with that term, it was basically, genuinely, the way I would describe it is like a modern Salem witch trials. The country, for whatever reason, was just swept up in this satanic panic. America is a fairly religious country, and in the 80s, there was a rise of heavy metal music. People were dressing kind of scary and alternative, chains and black clothes and long hair and eyeliner. What some people might consider as like satanic symbology was around a lot, and I think it was making a lot of people really uncomfortable. And there was also a rise in games like Dungeons and Dragons. It's so funny now to think that Dungeons and Dragons was seen as like this cult, like scary, satanic thing, but in the 80s it totally was. There was like propaganda videos made to like discourage parents from letting their kids play Dungeons and Dragons because they literally thought it was like indoctrinating them into a cult. Same with heavy metal music, same with the clothes they were wearing. Like there was a real mass hysteria around this sort of alternative way of expressing yourself. And particularly the really religious people in America did not like it. And there was a lot of fear going around. So, as we all know, in like the very first episode, I think it is, Eddie's character is introduced. He's into Dungeons and Dragons. He wears very dark, like alternative clothes. He's got the long hair, he's got the chains. And pretty much straight away, Chrissy, the cheerleader, has an encounter with Vecna and is killed in Eddie's trailer in his home. And basically, immediately, the town turns on Eddie. I mean, I say turns on Eddie, I don't think they even liked him to begin with, but certainly now there is a mass hysteria around this Eddie character because, I mean, they thought he was a freak to begin with because he was into like the dark clothes and the heavy metal music and played Dungeons and Dragons. Now they see this crime as like a confirmation of like, yeah, he's part of a satanic cult. In fact, he's the leader of this satanic cult. And this murder of Chrissy was his doing, and it was some sort of devil worship. And we are going to hunt him down and literally pretty much burn him at the stake. Like, that's what it turns into. So, as I was watching that, I was like, that really reminds me of the West Memphis 3 case. So, if you're not familiar, the West Memphis 3 was a case where 3 teenagers were accused of murdering 3 young children. So, on May 5th, 1993, 3 8-year-old boys, whose names are Steve Branch, Michael Moore, and Christopher Byers, were reported missing in West Memphis, Arkansas. They were later found dead, and I'm not going to go into the graphic nature in which they were found. If you do want to learn more about that, you can watch the documentary Paradise Lost because they kind of talk a bit more about it. But it is kind of upsetting, just to warn you. They were found, and 3 teenagers in the area were accused of committing the crimes as part of a satanic ritual. And those teenagers were Damien Eccles, who Eddie Munson is loosely based on, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miskelly Jr. Let's dive a little bit deeper into these 3 suspects. So we have Damien Eccles, which is the one that Eddie Munson is loosely based on. We have Jason Baldwin, and we have Jesse Miskelly. Now, these three teenagers were living in the same area around the time of the murders of these children. Damien and Jason were friends and they knew Jesse Miss Kelly, but they weren't really good friends with them. At the time of their arrests, Jesse Miss Kelly was 17 years old, Jason Baldwin was 16, and Damien Eccles was 18 years old. Jason Baldwin and Damien Eccles had been arrested previously on really minor charges. They'd been arrested for things like vandalism and shoplifting. Jesse Miss Kelly had a little bit of a reputation for having some sort of like anger issues in school, and Jesse Miss Kelly and Damien Eccles had actually dropped out of school previous to this. Jason Baldwin, however, earned pretty good grades and he was really talented at drawing and things like that, so he was a little bit more committed to his schoolwork, it seems. But Damien Eccles and Jason Baldwin were close friends and they bonded over their shared interests of music, their sort of fashion tastes, the fiction that they read, and their general distaste of the cultural climate of West Memphis, which was situated in the Bible Belt. I didn't know this was a thing, but apparently in America there's like an area that's super religious, I suppose. So that's where they happened to be, and I guess the boys didn't really agree or resonate with that kind of culture. Eccles' family was not very wealthy. They were actually kind of on the poor end of things, and Damien Eccles did have some mental health issues. He actually did spend several months in a mental health institution in Arkansas. These three teenagers, Damien Eccles, Jason Baldwin, and Jesse Miss Kelly, later became known as the West Memphis Three. They were convicted in 1994 for the 1993 murders of three boys in the West Memphis area. Damien Eccles was actually sentenced to death. Jesse Miss Kelly was sentenced to life in prison with two 20-year sentences on top of that, and Jason Baldwin was sentenced to life in prison as well. The prosecution said that the teenagers killed the young boys as part of a satanic ritual. I'm not going to deep dive into everything that happened during the trials because honestly, we would be here for hours. I mean, we'd be here all day. I would definitely recommend going and watching Paradise Lost if you want a deeper dive into the trials because they do show in court footage, which is so interesting to watch. But there was a lot of really dodgy evidence. There was also a suspected emotional bias in the court. There was just a lot of controversy around this case. There was a lot of police, asking leading questions, and it was cause for a lot of controversy. And actually, there was a lot of celebrities and musicians that held fundraisers to help free the West Memphis Three. Johnny Depp was actually quite involved in leading these campaigns to free the West Memphis Three. So in July 2007, there was new forensic evidence that was presented. And then in 2010, the Arkansas Supreme Court made a decision that because of the newly produced DNA evidence and the potential juror misconduct, that the case could be appealed. So eventually, the West Memphis Three were able to accept a plea bargain. And in this case, the plea bargain meant that they were stating they were innocent, but acknowledging that there was enough evidence to convict them. So it's a little bit confusing, but I think at that point they were just like, this is our way out, let's take it. So they were released with 10-year suspended sentences, having already served 18 years in prison. So, yeah, just to reiterate, these three guys spent 18 years in prison. Damien Eccles was sentenced to death for something that they didn't do. None of them had no part in this. And this is honestly just one example. There were loads of situations where people were blamed and accused of satanic rituals and even murder when there was no evidence for it. There was a really famous case of a nursery. I can't remember the town that it was in. I think it was Martinsville. And this nursery in Martinsville was involved in one of the biggest trials in American history. And it was all to do with accusations of child abuse and satanic ritual abuse. And it wasn't true. And these people that worked in this nursery were accused of horrific things. They were accused of abusing children, of sacrificing children. I mean, just like the worst kind of accusations. This is life ruining stuff. These people's reputations, their jobs, their lives, it was ruined for nothing because of mass hysteria and because of fear. And that is how powerful this is. So that is actually the reason I wanted to make this video, because as I was watching Stranger Things, I was like, this is a really good portrayal of the Satanic Panic in America at that time. And Eddie Munson is a really good portrayal of Damien Eccles, but of all the people that were wrongfully accused of things. And it's important to talk about because it's so easy to judge people when they're different from us, or to be scared because we don't understand something, but that is no reason to jump to conclusions. You can't jump to conclusions based on what someone wears, what kind of music they listen to, what games they play. Like, we need to be more analytical. We need to look for evidence and, motives and all these other things that just were not taken into consideration in a lot of these cases. Because the reality is, if we don't do those things, then people can be wrongfully convicted and, like Damien Eccles, could be sentenced to death for something they didn't do. So, yeah, I hope you found that interesting. I know I certainly did. If you want to do a deep dive, I would highly suggest watching the Paradise Lost documentary. I honestly watched it on YouTube. I don't know if it's still on here, but I would also recommend listening to the CBC podcast, Satanic Panic, which is about the Martinsville Nursery satanic ritual scandal. This stuff is so interesting, and I loved the new season of Stranger Things. I thought it was great, but I do think it's important to highlight this issue that it brought up, because mass hysteria and satanic panic can and has led to wrongful persecution and people literally being sentenced to death for something they didn't do. So it's really worth keeping in mind, because it could easily happen again. I mean, this has happened countless times throughout history because people get scared and they want someone to blame. But remember to look at the facts, remember to look at the motives, remember to look at the evidence. Don't just look at how someone appears and what they're into and decide that they did something that they might not have. If you want me to dive deeper into the case of the West Memphis 3 and Damien Eccles, then I can definitely do a follow-up video. But I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed the new season of Stranger Things. I know I definitely did. And if you want more content like this, then please leave me a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.